All right, welcome everybody. This is going to be our AWS graphical console and provisioning portion. I'm also going to talk about the SSH piece that you're going to need to do. Okay, so there'll be a couple of different videos inside of this larger video. So let's start off with the graphical console and accessing AWS Educate. So first we're going to go to the Educate website that you had in your email. Okay? It's also on my screen here. You're going to sign in with your CSU email and password that you set up when you set up your Educate account. Now it's important, you're going to have to launch the AWS console using AWS Educate. You can't go out to the normal AWS console links that you'll find on the internet. You have to use this AWS Educate link. By the way, I don't have the video on because I wanted you to have the full screen to see what I'm doing in AWS. All right, so when we get to the AWS Educate console, we're going to go ahead and click on AWS account up in the upper right corner. And then we're going to click on the Educate Starter Account link. And this is going to launch up another site called Vocarium. This is the provider for AWS. You're going to go ahead and click on the blue AWS console button. And that's going to take you to the management console here. This looks just like the normal AWS console, but you have to get there through the mechanism you just did. Okay? You're going to search for EC2. That's the Elastic Compute Cloud. Now, when you go in to do your homework assignments and you've already created your environment, you're going to just click on the running instances. But for now, we're going to go to the bottom there and click on create instance. Now, when we go to create our first instance, we have many different choices of operating system to run. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to choose Amazon Linux, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, you can choose Amazon Linux, you can choose Red Hat Linux, you can choose Ubuntu Linux, SUSE Linux. This is a preference. Okay, kind of like PC versus Mac. My instructions in the labs will give you instructions for both Ubuntu and Debian based as well as Red Hat based like Amazon Linux. You're going to want to make sure you choose a tier that's free tier eligible, like the T2 micro size. Okay. And then this will not burn any of your credits. Okay. So then the key is going to be environment, and the value can just be homework. This is just so we can categorize your instance, make it easier to find later. And then you're going to go ahead and you're either going to choose an existing pair of keys or create a new key. And I'm going to pause the video for a second to explain this. So when you first set this up, the first time you do this, you will not have an existing key pair. Going forward, after you create the key and you set it up the first time, you can just reuse that key if you want to. The only reason you wouldn't want to reuse that key would be if you accidentally shared it with someone. You would want to delete your existing key pair and create a new one. Okay. So all the keys that I create for this course, because I'm recording videos, I will delete. But you can just use the same one throughout the whole course if you choose. Okay. Now, when you choose the option to create a new key pair in a second here, you're going to give it a name. I don't care what you name it. It really doesn't matter. Okay. I would name it in a way that differentiates it from your Google key, okay? Because the Google key and the Amazon key are going to be completely different. All right, so make sure you name it in a way that you know that this is your Amazon key and which one's your Google key, so you can actually keep track of them and connect with the right key. Now, if you are more advanced and you've got some experience with this SSH stuff, you can actually use both keys with both Google and Amazon, but it's a little advanced, and I don't want to really have to cover it in this course. I don't feel it's appropriate. But if you are an advanced user, you're certainly welcome to use the same key for both. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and replay the video here, and you'll see that I'm going to create a new key pair. Okay. And I'm just going to name mine homework, but maybe you want to name it AWS homework. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Then you have to click that download key pair. If you don't click that, you won't download it. Okay. When you download it, you'll see it pop at the bottom of your browser or in your downloads folder. Okay. You're going to want to know where that downloaded to because you're going to need it later. Okay. Once you've done that, we can do launch instance, and now it's starting to actually build out your virtual instance in Amazon for you. And you can see that there's a log of it being created. You can also see there's a blue button that says View Instances at the bottom. You're going to want to click on that. Okay? And now you'll see that I had a couple of instances already from my previous videos, and I have a pending one, the one that I just created. Okay? You'll see some other information here. What availability zones? So are they in the eastern region, the western region? What their public DNS and IP is. This is how you're going to access it from your own computer or Cougar apps. Okay? You're not going to be able to access it by its private IP address or private DNS. I'm going to click on the tick box next to it, say connect. And this again shows me a public IP address. And then this SSH client tab shows me how I connect to it through an SSH client. Now, we cannot use the root user to connect. Root user is like the, I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent here for just a moment, but the root user is like the super user, okay? It has powers to do anything on your system. It's a very dangerous user to have, okay? So we generally don't want to use root ever. Okay? We want to use other ways to accomplish privileges on a case-by-case basis. So generally speaking, root is there for if we totally bork up our system and we need to do some repair on it, okay? For the purposes of this class, you should use an unprivileged user account. And so when you go to the EC2 Instance Connect tab, it says root, but what you really want to use is a different user called EC2-user. So you're going to replace the word root in the line below, and don't worry, I'm going to have an example on the screen in a few minutes that shows you how to do that. Okay. So these values here you can copy. So the host name for your SSH client is going to be this public DNS name here that ends in AmazonAWS.com. Okay? And you can just copy that. Right? Now I'm going to go ahead and stop all my instances because that's a good practice when you're not using them. So you're not burning the credits. You just say stop instance, click stop. When they're stopped, they'll go from green and they'll say stopped. Okay? When we're ready to start them again, we just select them and do start. If we have a problem, we can reboot them as well. Remember what I said, you do not want to terminate until you're done with the class or you're willing to rebuild it. Okay. And so now I'm going to go ahead and open up the other video, which starts talking about the SSH side. Now the first video that I'm going to show is assuming that you can either use an existing SSH software on your laptop or desktop, or you have the ability to install something. Okay. After the end of this video, I'm going to show those of you who are using a school computer or just want to use Cougar apps because it's easier, I will show you how to use Cougar apps. Okay. So now we've got our instances, and last time I stopped them, now we're going to go ahead and start the one that we want to connect to. So we tick the box next to its name, and we go up to Actions, Instance State, and then Start. Okay? And once that starts, we're going to go up to the Actions menu again, once we see the green. Okay? And if we don't see refreshing, we can click the little refresh button, okay, until we see it's started up. A little impatient. Okay? Now we see it's right. So now we can tick the box to action and say connect. Okay. And we're not going to use the username root. So what we're going to do is open an SSH client like it says, and on Mac it's called Terminal. So I go to my little search, I can type in Terminal on my computer. I can open up the SSH client. On Windows, it's called PowerShell, or you can use the SSH. If you use PowerShell, you're going to have to install the party SSH client. Okay, I will do that during the Q&A. Located in my, so the step is locate your key file. Boom, I've done this. Okay. I copy it here. How you do this will vary on the type of computer you have. If you have a Mac, you can do the exact same thing that I just did there. Okay, you go into your downloads folder like I did. You can literally copy every single command that I have there. And as long as you named it the same thing, you can copy my commands. If you named it something different, you use the CP command and you just change the name of the PEM file that you downloaded. Okay. So if I call mine mykey.pem, I would do cp space mykey.pem space tilde slash dot ssh slash. Okay. And that will copy that homework PEM file to my SSH directory, which is where the system looks for my keys. If you're running Windows, then you're going to do something similar, but it's going to vary based on which SSH software you chose. Okay, so I will show some examples during the Q&A based on what people have on their computers. Okay. Now, after you do that, the next thing is you have to change into the SSH directory, and my example command is on the screen there. Okay. And that would be cd space ~.ssh. And a tilde is just a squiggly line. It's to the left of the one key. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at the contents of my directory there, and we are going to talk about the command line more, so this is just a few very basic things. Right now, homework.pem does not have proper permissions, and so SSH will not use it. It's what we call unsecure. Okay. We have homework.pem is writable by me, and it's readable by anybody who has access to my system. So if I opened up that file, you would all be able to see what my key is. That's a bad thing. We want to protect this key. So in the instructions from Amazon, it tells you to make sure your key is not viewable by the general public. Okay? So we do that by copying the command that they have, which is this chmod 400 homework.pem. Okay? And you do the same thing. So if you see my video here, I do that. Okay? I go back to the other window, I paste it. And now if I do an ls, again, now I see that it's relay, so it's protected. Okay? So now what I do is I copy and paste the information about host. I can paste the host name, or I can copy and paste the whole thing. The problem you see in this video is I copied and pasted the command, I type yes, and so how do I get out of this screen? I'm obviously stuck here. I shouldn't be logging in as root. It's telling me that. I hold on the control key on my keyboard and I press C, and that will escape me out of this SSH connection. So if you ever enter something, you just control C and you go back to the command prompt. Okay? Something I'll teach you next week, but a little bit of a precursor to next week's lectures. Now I'm going to copy and paste and just change the username to be ec2-user. Okay? And I typed it here so you could see what I was talking about. That's actually the username you want to use. Now, when I go back here, it didn't change it for me. So I'm just going to go retype in the other window the command that I had before, and you can see that. Okay? And all that I'm doing here is changing the username. And then I'm back here, be the host name, the public DNS, and paste it here. Okay? And now I log in. I don't need a password because I'm using a key. When we're using a key, passphrase, and it's for the purposes of this demo, I think, and your homework assignment, I think that it's totally fine for you just to use this key as it is. Okay, just don't share it with anybody. All right. Now, when we log, we notice that it has a different name than connected to. That's its internal name. You go look at the instance details, we can see. Okay, this is the instance private DNS internal name. That's what we actually connect to it. If you don't understand the difference between a private public IP address, that's okay. Talk to me in the Q&A, and I'd be more than happy to explain that. Okay? All right, when we logged in here, we saw that there was a security issue. The system needs an update. This is no different than your Windows update or your Mac update or your iOS or Android update. Okay? The system tells you how to apply the updates to your system. Okay? So we're just going to run this sudo yum update command to apply all of the security patches. Okay? And there we go. It's going to install them. It asks us if it's okay. We say yes, and then it installs all the patches for us. Okay? Now, if you're a more advanced user, you can go ahead and set this up to patch things automatically so you don't have to worry about it when you log in. Okay? But that's outside the scope of this class. That's not a cloud. That's a Linux type class. All right, so once you've done that, I'm going to talk about Hyper, which is a cross-platform shell that you can download and install on your own computer. But first, let's exit all of out of our instance, and now we can go shut it down. We don't want to leave it running. We're not using it. Okay, so we go to Actions, Instance State, Stop. Okay. And we just go ahead and confirm it. Okay, and now let's stop it. Now, I went to this hyper.is website. This is a terminal that you can use for SSH that has some cool features like some plugins, and it's pretty and it's customizable and things like that. And by customizable, it's a heck of a lot easier to customize it than it is to customize the normal shell. Okay. So I can download it from my platform. I can install it. You install it however you would install normal software on your computer. Okay. And then once you open it, and then once we open it, we will see that it's very similar to the other shell software that we already have. So we will use the exact same command that we used before, connect. Okay. And we use the history command to look up what we've typed before, so we don't have to manually retype it or try to remember what we had. Okay. And you can see I copied it and pasted it into the other window. If my server were up, I'd be able to connect to it, but I turned off the server. Okay. Now, the last thing that I'm going to show you is the Cougar piece. Okay. And so Cougar Apps, this is how you connect to the Cougar Apps. You go to the website here. Okay. You're going to log in with your Cougar Courses username. And then you're going to need on your computer Citrix, I think it's called Citrix Connect or something like that. It should automatically download, Citrix Receiver, that's what it's called. It should automatically download the little widget that you need for this to work. Okay. So now you're going to go to Desktops, and you're going to go to Virtual Lab Desktop. If you don't have Virtual Lab Desktop, then you're going to need to talk to the Student Help Desk to find out how you can get access to the lab desktop, because you do need that. One of these other ones may work, but I don't know for certain whether they'll work for you or not. So if you don't see the Virtual Lab Desktop, talk to the Help Desk and see if they can help you get that. Okay? You click on it, it's going to open up, and it will take a while the first time you connect. It's going to log you into one of the lab computers that we have on the campus. Okay. But once it opens, you will see Windows Desktop in your web browser, as you can start seeing here. Okay. And then you'll have a variety of software on here that you can use. So one of the pieces of software, if you search for it, is SSH. Okay. And so, oops. Okay, so we've got this SSH here. Okay. And so what we can do is open up this. Oops. That's not a graphical. So we have to go to our PowerShell first. Alright, so this gets us into the command line. And now we should be able to open the SSH app. Okay? So we're going to use the SSH app to do the same sort of thing that we would do with the other platform on Mac and whatnot. As far as your identity file goes, your PEM file, oops, this is Windows, not Mac. We can put it into a location, so we can specify where we want to put our file. Okay, so what we could do is we could specify using -i, our identity file, where our file is. Now I don't have one on here, but let's just pretend that I have a file. Okay, so let me open up text edit here. This is my fake key. Okay? It's not a real key. let's just say I copied my PEM file over here, and I put my PEM key, we'll call it homework aws.pem, whatever I call it, okay? Okay, so now we've got this file on our desktop. What I can do is go into my desktop folder. Oops. No, I guess that doesn't matter so much. SSH, and then I'm going to connect to my server. So I'm going to go back to my other computer here and just pull the command that I ran last time just so you can see it. So I'm basically going to type something along these lines. SSH -I, and then wherever my file is, so homework aws.pem, okay, and then EC2 user at whatever it is, okay, and that's how I would connect. If I put that file in a different location, then I can do something like this. And then everything else will be the same. Oops. So that's effectively how you can do this from the school's Cougar Apps environment. Now, Cougar Apps is probably going to be slow. So if you are able to do SSH client on your own computer and set up your key like you would do here, that would be the ideal situation for you. But if you have a school issue computer, you're not going to be able to install any software. So if the IT department did not put an SSH client on your machine, and it's entirely possible they didn't, then you're going to need to connect to Cougar Apps. All right, so then if you have any further questions about that, just go ahead and ask me during the Q&A or the group tutoring session next week. Okay? And that's it for this section.